Juliet from Classic JG issued a lengthy vlog on Shrewsbury ghosts. Lengthy because there are so many stories from Shrewsbury. I can both recommend the vlog and her excellent channel. Despite having issued a number of vlogs on Shrewsbury ghosts, Juliet pointed out a number of stories that I'd either missed or she provided a slightly different twist to, hence this vlog. Although I've augmented Juliet's with some others I found when researching her editions. However, Juliet's vlog is derived from Scott Davis, a 2007 Haunted Shropshire, published in Cheltenham by the History Press. But I also should mention his 1987 book, The Shrewsbury Ghost Book. He has also written books on ghosts on Britain's canals, which I suspect I've been influenced by when reporting on the Shropshire Union. Having not actually read any, it would be wrong of me to criticise, but neither should I endorse. However, I do suspect that they lack the rigour of writers like Gary St Michael Nottingham. Certainly Scott Davis does suggest that the quarry was the site of witch burning, but apart from the scald and potential husband murder of Mrs Foxall, there's no evidence of this. Despite this, Mrs Foxall's ghost has been spotted on Claremont. Abbey Lodge is now known as Abbey Lodge Guest House, and not to be confused with Abbey Court Guest House. It is haunted by two ghosts, one in the attic and the other on the lower floors. During renovations in 1985, the builders refused to work after dark, following a feeling of being watched, which the owner also felt. Guests from the BBC were woken at 4 a.m. by loud banging and dragging noises from the top floor, which was semi-derelict. I doubt if this was on New Year's Eve, but if so, it is possible that I was the culprit. But I've shared with you elements of my misspent youth, and this is an incident I would rather forget. The owner and his dog later investigated, the ghost, not a drunken me, and seemed uneasy with the middle bedroom, later hearing footsteps. His father then saw a face at the window of this bedroom. On investigation, the bedroom was empty, but the curtains opened and the dog bolted. A daughter of a former owner spotted a housekeeper in grey with keys in one of the middle floor bedrooms. A house on Abbey Foregate, which I believe to be very close to the Abbey itself, has a friendly ghost who would tap and knock in the cellar. It didn't happen at night nor on a Sunday, and would stop when someone investigated. A door latch to the cellar would lift and the door open and close. A man called George Bromley had worked as a cobbler in the cellar, and the noises were identified as those of bootmaking. Town Walls Tower, or Wingfield's Tower, is the last remaining medieval watchtower belonging to the former town walls. The fortified structure, which was finished in the 14th century, was used to observe the land south of the town and across the River Severn. It's in the care of the National Trust and can be rented as accommodation. 2 young boys are believed to have died in a fire there in the late 16th century. Allegedly, this was the same fire that took the lives of children on Milk and Princes Street. But given the distance, I wonder if it has become convoluted. Have I mentioned that a lady has been spotted lying on a 4-poster bed at Rowley's house? I'm not sure I mentioned her, but was terrified of that a suit of armour would chase me, as in Scooby-Doo, when it was a museum. The other reported ghost is a male who seems oblivious to the lady. He's in a costume of the same period and has been seen long before arrival, and was haunting the house long before it became a museum. At the old music hall, a dandy has been spotted off stage right, flicking his face with a handkerchief. He was thought to be a bit of a luck charm, as the production would go well whenever he appeared. The old music hall is now a museum, and on display is the Corbett bed, and at least 3 of its previous locations of a young lady is often seen sat on the edge of the bed, combing her hair, but she's yet to appear in the museum. Coffee House Passage, the shut next to the music hall, has walls that bleed blood, and an eerie voice shouts, "Go." The Abbots of Lilleshall Abbey owned a lot of land and built Abbots House on Butcher's Row to have somewhere to stay when visiting to collect rents. At the Abbots House, where actually my doctor's was, people feel like they're being watched and develop breathing difficulties. Strange though this seems, I can concur that my experience of black magic in Indonesia is generally indicated by asthmatic attack. In fact, I've been asthmatic since my childhood. Is there a connection? Whilst guests at the Prince Rupert have spotted ashen faces from the upstairs window of the Abbots House. As speaking of the Prince Rupert, apparently the haunted cellars that I previously mentioned are now believed to have been a part of the town walls. 22 Butcher's Row is now Lad and Dad's, and I have reported on it being haunted. But maybe I missed that in the rear of this building, a man dressed in dark clothing with a brown leather apron around his waist was seen. It's possibly the spirit of beer retailer John Cooper, who unfortunately died from a heart attack that he suffered when moving heavy ale casks. And number 1 Fish Street was famous for Reverend Wesley putting in an appearance, but it's not the only one. The building used to be a hairdresser's shop, but the opening of it may well have disturbed someone. In the early days, staff would come to find curlers removed and lying on the floor around a bin. The owner's young niece came to stay in the upstairs living accommodation and said that she spent the night talking to a nice man who sat at the foot of her bed. At Bare Steps, a former tie shop called Orrell reported ghost sightings of a tall man having a conversation. There were other sightings by people passing the shop at night, some saying he was wearing a black suit and others that he is naked. It's believed that the graveyard of St Alban's extended this far, so could this have been a resident? W.H. Smith is where Morris's store and cafe and indeed ballroom used to be. I do in fact remember the cafe, but my memories are not as strong as those of the Lions Cafe, also on Pride Hill. A haunted figure has been seen in the basement, and music's been heard coming from what was the tea room, and footsteps in what was the ballroom. Bertha was a witch that's said to have been a beautiful young lady. She is often seen staring down from the first floor's Battler's Shrewsbury window. She seems to have been looking at the Buttercross. Many executions are believed to have taken place on the spot, so maybe she lost a loved one in a rather unpleasant manner. Bertha is still here, but she does have a nasty habit of her skin peeling off, and then she disintegrates before your eyes. One theory that I don't believe for 1 minute was that this store was built on the highest point of the 11th century town walls, and witches were burnt on this spot. Did poor Bertha suffer this fate? For the last 50 years, 40 Pride Hill was home to Thornton's Chocolates, and for the 40 years before, it was Pelican Snelson's Tobacconists. The building was built in the 1500s and the front bay section added in the 17th century. Later, 2 buildings were balconies were added, but these were removed during renovations. When it was a chocolate shop, an amiable visitor known as Friendly Fred would make regular appearances, and he'd mischievously place chocolates on the floor. Strangely, there's a similar story about Thornton's in Chester, especially on Valentine's Day. The Darwin Centre, at a cafe that was called Ginger & Co., was a source of hauntings. In the early mornings, a grey bearded man, dressed in a monk-like outfit, would often be seen on the stairs. He was thought to be responsible for cups and saucers moving overnight from one counter to another, and once emptying all of the contents of the cupboard and laying them neatly on the floor. The shopping centre is built on the site of the original town walls, so maybe our man has been visiting for a good few years. In July 1916, Captain John Williamson of the King's Shropshire Light Infantry was home on leave for the first time in 2 years, but it would appear that he couldn't face to go back to the horrors of war. He entered the GPO, then at 27 Pride Hill, and mailed himself a letter of resignation to his commanding officer. He then went downstairs to the basement, where he drew out his own service revolver and sadly shot himself. A figure in full KSLI uniform and a sandbound belt used to be regularly seen in the basement by staff of the electrical store. Some say it is Captain Williamson, while others say it's a totally different soldier who was waiting for a letter of exemption that sadly never came. I may have already reported on hauntings at 15 Castle Street. I think now Lily M Skincare. A visitor started to make herself known around the winter of 1972-3. Staff became frightened when distant footsteps could be heard above them, yet nothing untoward was found each time the manager bravely went up to investigate. A temporary assistant, possibly Mrs. Liz Pansit, was not quite so lucky when she took some glasses upstairs, for standing at the window was a short-haired man dressed in a blue uniform. She assumed it to be a member of staff, but when she returned downstairs, all of the staff were present. A next-door neighbour said that she often heard footsteps after the store had closed. She once saw something go through an adjoining wall. The neighbour also claimed that at 14 Castle Street, when a travel agent's 2 members of staff were at their desks and they saw just a pair of legs, dressed in black trousers and wearing shiny black work shoes, walk through the shop. They gave them quite a shock, so much so that one of them refused to set foot in there ever again. I'm very sceptical of the myth that Sir John Benbow opened the Traitor's Gate to parliamentarian troops. Nevertheless, he has been spotted hanging from the gate itself. Allegedly, he was hung from the gate, despite him having actually been hung at the site of the Castle Gatehouse. This probably reflects my view that reality follows consciousness. Thus, for some, if they believe that Sir John was hung here, they will indeed see him. During the renovation of Henry Tudor House, workmen reported their tools going missing, but then returned. I've mentioned a number of ghosts at the Lion Hotel, including a soldier in the bar. Apparently a man is seen drinking in the bar and then falling over. Could this be the soldier? Despite being the location of my fracas with Nick Griffin, and I assume who was John Tyndall, I plead not guilty. One of the monks seen in the Golden Cross is believed to have been fighting someone, speculated to be Puritans trying to claim ecclesiastical silver following the Civil War. At Dogpole, the old house was owned by the Peel family, saw a glowing mist disappearing in the cellar. This is where I previously reported a smell of burning and dismissed the opinion that the Peels were burnt at the stake for being Catholic. And nevertheless, there was a noise of people chopping wood has been heard, as a child has been seen hiding behind a plant pot. The Draper's Court, built in 1576, retains many original features and furniture from the 17th century and was extensively restored in 1993. An ethereal female figure has been seen in the main dining hall, standing near the windows. Maybe she was connected to John Tompkins, who used to live there, or perhaps she's connected to the Shrewsbury breaker Thomas Brown, who foiled the Rodolphi plot to assassinate Queen Elizabeth I and replace her with Mary, Queen of Scots. I previously mentioned that at the old Royal Salop Infirmary, but apparently security guards at the Parade Shopping Centre do hear noises at night. the old jail, I have reported poltergeist activity and sightings of people hanging. It has been used for executions. But it would seem that the ghost of a policeman has also been spotted at the old post house, a police house opposite. At the end of the 1800s, a policeman who was possibly racked with guilt after an innocent man he'd arrested was executed, went down into the basement and sadly took his own life by hanging himself. It would appear that the poor man had changed his mind at the last minute, as he was found with his fingers inside the noose, a desperate but sadly futile attempt to save the rope from tightening around his neck. He has since been seen on several occasions hanging in his uniform, sometimes only his head and upper body, part of his body. For a while it was a restaurant, and staff regularly saw the poor man in the basement. I have reported on Bloody Jack at Shrewsbury Castle, but it would seem there were other hauntings. During restoration after an IRA attack in 1992, the workers' tools would mysteriously move in the night. The ghosts of Adeliza and Roger de Montgomery had been seen racing towards the castle for cover at the time of a storm, as Old Nick tried to punish them with a severe storm for building a church at Quatford. At Shrewsbury Station, a hooded figure is seen walking along the tunnel at night. Scott David speculates this could be a monk, despite the monasteries having been dissolved before the station was built.